ever happened to you? You are at a social gathering. It could be a family or a friend gathering, right? And you're there by yourself, just trying to bide time. And before you know it, a group of people walk up to you. They start talking about all the incredible things they've achieved and what they've done. And then they look to you. For a moment, you go blank, right? You've got three options in front of you. The first one is you lie. The second one is you decide that you are going to just stall, right? And the last one, you decide that I'm just gonna tell the truth. Now, let's be honest here. Most of us, we would not dare think about doing the third one. We would say, okay, I'm gonna lie, I'm gonna stall, or I'm just gonna find a way to get out of this conversation. I don't know if you've heard of Dunbar's number. Basically, it's a theory that we can only maintain 50 meaningful relationships at a given time. Now, this is exactly why, comparison is such a big thing in us. Because in that 150 meaningful relationships, there's always going to be someone who's doing better than you. Someone who's achieved success faster than you. Someone who's married, someone who's engaged, someone who has basically a thriving life. You're going to compare yourself to those people because it's just a biological reaction. We are hardwired to compare ourselves to people who are within our circle. We've only got a number of given slots. So in that 150 slots, you're looking at the people who are around you, the people who you wish to become. The question here is, why is this so important? When I was 14, I remember my dream was to become a fantasy writer. No one around me was exactly writing or enjoyed writing, except for me. But I consider myself a late boomer. Until I was 13, a lot of the people who I was around knew who they were literally at 8, 9. They were either athletic, sporty, intelligent. They already had their lives mapped out for them. I kid you not. I went to the most competitive primary school ever because I had kids who literally wanted to go to Harvard and study engineering and science and even become pilots. And there was me. I did not know exactly what I wanted to do. I was so used to comparing myself to everyone else. That was what I was hardwired to do, to compare myself to them. So, you're casually scrolling through social media. And nowadays, 25 is literally like 40. People are figuring out what they want to do at an earlier age because of social media, because of the internet, because of the resources and the unlimited access that we have to it. You've got people like Shawn Mendes, Justin Bieber, the list goes on and on, right? Of people who've achieved success at a faster rate than what was expected 3 or 4 decades ago.
Inspiration can come from any direction.
A decade ago, our next guest was an 18-year-old university dropout.
Cunningham never expected to become an entrepreneur, but
starting his music career at 14 years old.
First 2 albums, 19 and 21, earned her critical praise and a level of commercial success unsurpassed among her peers.
18-year-old in Ponte Vedra, Florida, isn't on the court. It's on the shelves.
World's youngest female tech unicorn founders at just 30.
An online entrepreneur when he was 14. His greatest success came a decade later when he and a colleague created Spotify.
So you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself, what do I do about this? Is it too late? Now that's what we're going to be talking about today. And there are a few variables that we need to discuss that are going to give you the bigger picture. Variable 1 is success. Success basically means, we've got to redefine it. I did a video recently where I talked about how my English professor told me success often necessarily mean monetary gain. And that's usually what we think of though. We think, oh my gosh, I need to be a millionaire and then I'm successful. A few years ago, I realized success isn't really that. Success is a journey. Money is always at the end of the road, right? Of the yellow brick road when it comes to success. But when you focus on the monetary gain, you're always going to be depressed, you're always going to be sad, you're always going to feel as if you haven't truly made it in life because you're trying to finesse something that very few people get access to. So why don't you redefine success as this? Doing meaningful work that can change the world, work that you enjoy, work that can build a future that you want to build. Living your purpose. Why don't we define success like that? Now, the second variable is all to do with timing. What I mean by this is they are people who've made it early in life. Now, I'll give you a few examples. You've got people like Ali Abdaal.
Hey friends, welcome to the channel. If you
started making it at 24 years old on YouTube. Like he was basically a university student.
Ali, and I'm a YouTuber, podcaster, and writer based in London. In a previous life, I studied medicine at Cambridge University.
Who posted videos on the internet about his experience as, studying being a doctor at university, at Oxford. He does productivity videos on YouTube. And he made it earlier than a lot of YouTube stars. Now, on the music side, we've got the likes of Justin Bieber, Shawn Mendes, who Justin was literally 13 years old, became a bona fide star. Shawn Mendes, in his late teens, became a bona fide star. And then you've got Christopher Paolini.
Now to Aragon. Christopher Paolini was only 15 years old when he wrote the novel that made him the global literary superstar he is today.
Who was one of the youngest writers ever to be published, and whose books, well, actually, I would say just one book, but his book was actually adapted into a motion picture movie. Aragon, of course, it didn't really, get ahead and end up making a lot of mileage from that, but he still made it before a lot of people made it. Think about this. The average author becomes successful in their 40s to their 50s. And he made it as a teenager. That is incredible, right? But at the end of the spectrum, right, there are people who've made it later on in life. Like your Brené Brown, who became an internet famous when she was in her 40s. Or the likes of Mary Folio, who truly made it when she was going to a mid to late 30s. Which I'm not saying is old by any account, but when we compare other people who've made it a lot earlier, there is a gap there, right? And then there's Susan Boyle. How could I forget Susan Boyle? Susan Boyle, who at 40 years old won X Factor. A lot of people didn't think she would actually make it. So timing is everything, because when you look at these stories, whether it's the younger people who've made it or the older people who've made it, they've had things that we necessarily might not have had. This goes into variable 3, resources. People who tend to make it a lot earlier on tend to have resources. Now I'm not talking about financial resources, I'm talking about support. I'm talking about a community. I'm talking about knowledge and skills that we might not necessarily have. I'm talking about being in a different part of the world, right? Or being in a different city, or being around people who might be doing the same thing. Think about it like this. You've got 7 friends and you are all in your 20s or 30s, right? And one of your friends is an entrepreneur. The other one is an investment banker. The other one has several companies around the world. The other one is a vlogger, a YouTuber. The other one's a millionaire. The other one is someone who's written hundreds and hundreds of books and is literally a million. Well, they are a millionaire, right? And then there's you. Are you telling me that you would not be able to achieve success? Obviously you would, because you're around people who are like you. So resources are extremely important, because the more resources you have, the better you are, the better equipped you are, and the faster you get to your goal. So now we go to the next part of this discussion. What's next? That's a good question. A lot of us, when we feel left behind, we feel as if it's too late. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're 25 or you're 35, or you're 35 or you're 45, or you're in your 50s or your 60s. There's always going to be this part of you that thinks to yourself that it's too late for me to go after my goals. One of the things I always remind myself is I believe that everyone has a purpose, because I believe that God gave all of us a purpose. And that is so important. And so the question you should be asking yourself is, fine, you're not 25, you're not 18, you might be in your late 20s, you might be in your 30s. It's never too late to achieve your goals. And here's the thing, if you are maybe younger, you also need to ask yourself, what's next? Why are you doing this? Why are you chasing after that goalpost? So here's the solution though, the one that solved a lot of things for me. As I talk a lot in my YouTube videos, I grew up in a very competitive family, highly competitive. I went to extremely competitive schools, and I always felt as I was always struggling to keep up with everyone else. But the more I improved in my skills, the more I improved on where I wanted to go, the more I learned, the more I figured out about myself, the more I developed, the more I improved on my skills. My narrative shifted. I went from understanding from not understanding why I was here, what I was doing, to understanding what my purpose was in life. And I think that's the thing though. That's the key. What is your purpose? How do you define success? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? That is so crucial. But it all starts from the foundation of building your skills. You know, an architect doesn't become an architect overnight. They have to learn drawing. They have to learn dynamics. They have to learn mathematics. You know, they have to learn how things work. They have to design things on Photoshop before they become an architect. The same thing with a doctor, the same thing with a writer, right? These people develop, these people learn. If you look at all the millionaires and, you know, success stories, right? If you look at all of them, you realize that all of them had to learn something. They had to discover why they were doing it. They had to incorporate skills so that they could get over the hedge. But my next point, right, at the end of the day, we all feel as if we're left behind. We all feel as if we're lagging because we are now in a day and age where success is always defined by your age. Success is always defined by, I don't know, your underdog story in a way. And if you're older than everyone else, it almost feels as if it's too late to actually start the journey, or it's too late to go for what you want to go for. But my question to you is, what is actually stopping you from achieving what you want to go achieve? Is it comparison? Is it comparing yourself to everyone else? Or is it just because you're afraid that you might not be able to compete with everyone else's expectations of you? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. And listen, it all takes time. It's one step at a time. And eventually you will get there. We all feel left behind, like I said. But that's why we always need to just improve ourselves bit by bit and redefine success. Oh, if you haven't, please like, please subscribe so that you're always notified whenever a new video comes out.